Welcome in to Get in the Hole. Here we are, Steve McAvoy here with you on a magnificent Monday to you and yours here in the Underground. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are and however you're listening. Be sure to throw us a like, sub, 5-star review, everything you can think of, wherever you get those favorite podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, that Radio Shack down the street. I don't even know if they make those anymore, whatever it is. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Get in the Hole Pod. Facebook, just search us at Get in the Hole. And, of course, you can find our parent network, Underground Sports Philadelphia, on Twitter and Instagram at Underground PHI, and on Facebook and Twitch, type in those URLs with the / Underground Sports PHI. Finally, on YouTube, like I had mentioned earlier, huge network for us, almost to 200 subs. We're trying to get to that monetization point where we can start making money, and I can start bringing you some big-time guests. I want to get Brooke Kreischer on so bad to just talk about golf. I don't even know if he plays golf, but we'll find out. Go follow us there on YouTube. Just go and search Underground Sports Philadelphia. And, of course, find all of our other shows, from soccer to fantasy to lacrosse, streaming, you name it, we've got it. Underground Sports Philadelphia. Once again, Stephen McAvoy here, as per usual, every week on the PGA Tour, giving you the news, analysis, and bets. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Stephen McAvoy _. And joining me in the seat this week, Ben Pirro, the Underground athlete, representing the Get in the Hole podcast, probably the best Underground athlete we have, and we have some pros on the network, but I think you're the best one, particularly because you chose to wear the Mets shirt today. Ben, how the hell are you?
I'm great. It's an honor to be back on the pod. I love coming on and just talking golf, talking the sport. I'm great. I'm in South Dakota, and it's going. Life's going. So thank you for saying I'm like the best athlete. I mean,
in my opinion,
I knew I was, but hearing it from someone as credible as you just makes me feel that much better. So.
Sorry, I just got a text from one of my my editors. Anyways, South Dakota. Well, I have to discuss the pink elephant and just like standing in the middle of your bedroom. From Long Island, obviously from the East End, a little more ritzy area of the island, and now you're what town are you even in?
I'm in Sioux Falls, so it's the largest city in South Dakota. I wouldn't really,
of only 400 citizens.
It's honestly a lot bigger than I thought. Downtown is actually pretty cool. Even though I've only been down there once, but it has everything I need for the summer. It's not too far from tournaments, so hotel expenses aren't really a thing for the most part. So yeah, it gets the job done. So
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it on a map. First of all, 180,000 citizens, which is 18 times more than I would have ever thought.
Yeah.
Only a 2.4% unemployment rate. That means people are really mowing things down in Sioux Falls. I'm going to assume there's like farms everywhere. I feel like a lot of these golf courses were also built on like old like sod farms and shit.
Yeah. So a lot of them, it's a lot of farmland. So there's not a whole lot to see. Like today, I played a practice round in Minnesota because we're right next to Minnesota. So I played a practice round over at a course in Minnesota. There was nothing there on the way to the course, and the course was just in a tiny town, about an hour and 5 minutes away from where I'm staying. So there's not a whole lot to look at out here. There's really not. So,
do you know what the state's largest manufacturing export is?
Largest manufacturing export.
Aside from like food, because like obviously farms are gonna have food.
Yeah, I was gonna say like grass, like hay for horses or cattle and stuff.
Ironically, it's kindling products.
Wow.
Do you know that they sell $8 million worth of goods to sub-Saharan African countries?
Wow.
This is incredible. I'm finding stuff that I would have never even thought of. The $419 million of South Dakota's total goods are in kindling products.
Nice.
You know what we'll do? We're gonna buy you some wood golf clubs too, so you can play with those and be like a real honky tonk man.
Okay.
Maybe get you the rat tail hat that like Crocodile Dundee used to wear.
Oh yeah.
Or Diddy Crockett? Did he used to wear that? One of the two.
I have no
idea.
I'm just listening to spit gibberish.
So Ben, we haven't had you on in a while. It's been a hot minute. You've obviously been busy. You've moved on from Florida and the Mike Bender Academy, and now you're on in the Dakotas. You've been training. You've been placing top 10 in a few events, making some money. Tell us about the experience. What's it been like? What is life like now? Trying to be a pro and moving on from just the overall training and playing those like day events to now moving on to bigger and brighter and hopefully by next year Q School.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not permanently done with Florida. This is just a temporary thing out here. So the reason I came out here was for the Dakotas tour. It's a well-established and well-respected tour, which takes place in the South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, and like Iowa. Those kind of 4 states, that area. And so, because it's a summer-long thing, I needed a place to stay, and so a friend of a friend put me in touch with like my roommate / landlord. He just bought a house from his brother, and he basically was just like, "You can pay rent," and I was like, "Okay." He basically gave me the basement. He's really chill. He's awesome. So, but the experience has been very interesting. So normally pro golf in Florida, the purses aren't as large, but you know, it's 1, 2, maybe 3 rounds. I only had 1 3-round event. Out here, you play in pro-ams, so you're a lot of tournaments. I think, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, they are pro-ams. So it's a pro and 3 amateurs. And not every pro plays in the pro-am. It's just basically like who ends up getting randomly selected to play with the amateurs. So that'll generally last the first 2 rounds. And then the 3rd round, all the pros play together that make the cut. So the cut is generally top 3rd in ties, whatever that comes out to. And then the AMs will play separate from the pros on that final day. It definitely teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot of patience, for sure. I thought it was more of a, serious amateur golfer kind of deal. It's not really like that. If you have any questions about that, I can definitely.
Yeah, please give us some more insight into how Farmer Bill's playing on the Dakota store.
Well, the rounds. So for reference, the first two tournaments I played, one was a pro-am, one was a pro only. But I ended up not playing with any amateurs in the first one, just because of the draw that I had. So we played very quickly, to say the least. And so the 3rd event rolls around, and I end up getting put in a pro-am, which originally I was told that more of the vet guys, the older guys, generally were put in the pro-ams, but for some reason I was put in the pro-am, even though I'm like one of the younger guys out here. It took us 6 hours both rounds.
Brutal.
To the point where if I had a 3-footer for par or birdie or whatever, I was not marking it. I was just getting up and hitting it, because I don't mean this to be rude or condescending, but watching them putt, you want to rip your eyes out. And so, and I played in a couple 1-day pro-ams this past week, and they drink heavy, they're loud, they talk while you're hitting, they start their cart while you're hitting. They're wasted. They offer you shots of Fireball, and I don't drink at all. So I've never drank on a golf course, and you'll never see me drink on a golf course. I don't even drink anymore. So it's definitely a different experience, and teaches you a certain level of patience that is needed to play.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
That I think it's crazy, because a 6-hour round for you, meanwhile, they were doing the same thing at St. Andrews. Honestly, Matt Fitzpatrick was complaining about how their final group, I think it was him, Homa, and Tiger, took like 6.5 hours to finish out.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it's like to be playing with guys who don't obviously the traditional pro-am on the PGA Tour or European Tour or whatever will be like celebrities, and they aren't like nearly as bad. I'd much rather be playing with Tom Holland than playing with Farmer Joe down the road. But my God, all right, what's been the best and the worst experience you've had with I guess you'd call him an amateur, but really just kind of like an average Joe at this point?
Yeah, so, okay, I can give you the worst experience, because it happened Actually, it's a toss-up between the two worst experiences because they both happened this past week in two different one-dayers. So we were playing, and it was a shotgun. So we started on hole 3, and it was a 9-hole course. So we had to play the 9 holes twice, and we teed up on 3. We had just played 9, but we still had to play 1 and 2 just to finish our front 9. But so at the time, we're a whole hole behind the group ahead of us, and the 3 AMs in my group decide to stop for like basically a hot dog and a soda, like bratwursts or whatever. And I actually had another pro playing with me because we played in 5 sims.
Fun. Okay?
And it was like 30 mile per hour winds as well. So we both hit our tee shots on the short par 4 we lay up. And I look at the guy and I was in my group and I'm like, what are they doing? Like they're still not even on the tee. Well, he's like, oh, they're getting like bratwursts and stuff. And I was like, well, we're a whole hole behind. And we've been waiting here for like 15 minutes. Like, this is ridiculous. So I drive up and I park in the whole course is like tree line. So I park in the trees. I almost get nailed with the tee shot. They didn't yell for. And then we go to hit our wedges, and I was closer to the hole, so I had to hit my wedge second. The daughter of one of the players was talking very intently to the fellow pro in my cart. And I looked at him, and I was like, after my shot, I was like, what she want? And I was already not playing well at this point. And he goes, basically, they're really mad at you because you drove up. And she said that it was very unprofessional of you, how she's never had a pro drive off on her like that. And that you can do it again, but if you do it again, she's going to try to hit you. And I was like,
wow.
I'm already like 3 over par at this point. Like, it's like my day is like, it sucks. And finish out the hole. They don't say anything to me. And then we tee off on the next hole, and the kid in my cart goes to me. They're like, so they're still mad. I was like, what'd they say now? And he goes, basically, like, did you say anything to him? And he was like, yeah. And they're like, well, good, because if you didn't, we were going to say something. This is what the dad and the daughter are saying. Okay. And so I'm in the trees left. She hits like her 4th shot next to my ball in the trees. And I looked at them, and I may or may have kind of exchanged words with them, basically saying how it's very inappropriate and how if they have an issue with something that I do, they should come to me instead of coming to another pro. And I said, if that were to happen, if you were to try to hit me, I would make sure you were escorted from the course.
Oh,
that's how I said it. That was the nice version of what I said.
We are burning bridges in South Dakota.
It is what it is what it is. It was, it was obviously very inappropriate. It was like a very inappropriate situation. I think is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
I think I talked to my mental coach, and he was like, I'm not saying that you're in the wrong, but you can't say stuff like that to amateurs. Even though I'm not saying you're wrong. But if that were to get back to a, say, tournament director at a Korn Ferry PGA Tour event, you'd be in deep trouble and you would probably get fined. So, unfortunately, you just have to kind of play like the bite your tongue role a little bit with definitely. The AMs. So, that's definitely been the worst experience I've had so far.
So then in that case, so obviously you've spoken to your mental coach. What's it like then having to deal with that kind of situation? And obviously we've already gone through months ago when you were back on the show, but like how you really kind of have to get mentally ready in terms of your game. Like you almost overexert yourself to get mentally prepared. What's it like when you have these mental blocks? Obviously you were 3 over in that event. Is it like that much of a distraction that you really can't handle it, and you think it's in terms of the actual people itself, would you be better off if you didn't really have this sort of a issue, or do you think you'll be able to overcome it better over time?
Well, in the future, I'm definitely learning how to deal with it. Like I said, we don't play pro-ams in Florida, and so it's just golfers, and they're mini tour events, so no one's really watching you.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of out there by yourself, and it's all business. So I'm definitely learning how to handle that like overly social aspect of this, which I'm certainly not used to. But I mean, it definitely does affect you. Like, let's be real. Like, because golf, and I said this to my dad, I was like, golf isn't the type of game where you can just get up there and swing really hard, or it's not the type of game where you can just hit someone really hard, like football or hockey. You know, you have to be super controlled. You have to have a lot of self-control as well. And so, not just with how you swing, but how you think, how you breathe. It takes a lot of self-control, and so doing this, I mean, if you can handle playing out here with like the amount of distractions that there are, you can play anywhere. So
I gotta say, it's kind of funny because like you talk to like Cameron Young per se, right? Someone who was in Q school months ago, went to the Corvair Tour, won 3 events, all of a sudden makes the PGA and is going off. I think the like origin stories of a lot of players, you don't really hear the stories very much. If we wind up seeing Ben Pirro with a PGA Tour card, this should be the #1 story on golf.com, what it was like playing the Dakotas Tour at 22 years old, 23 years old. But that's just like over the top ridiculous, I feel. Having like to put pros through this kind of a situation, I feel like it's just wrong on the tour's part.
You know, it sucks. You know, like obviously like it just motivates you to work harder and get to the next level. That's like how it is. You know, it's kind of how I treated like when I was at Presbyterian College. I treated it like it was a JUCO. I didn't want to be there for 4 years, so I just worked really hard so I wouldn't have to be there for 4 years. And so like that's one of the reasons, you know, no one wants to stick in the majors forever. You can't make any money. It's incredibly hard. They have to do it this way though, because that's what makes the purses so great, because their money actually goes towards our winnings. So that's why you see these events, although they cost over $800 to enter, which is insane, the winner still makes over 10 grand. And as long as you make the cut, you do make a profit on the week, regardless of like if you finish like last for the guys that made the cut. You normally make a little bit of a net profit as far as tournament entry and winnings go.
So far, what have you seen that is like the typical cut line typically in these tour events?
It's under par normally. So the first 2 events I missed the cut by 1 both times, which definitely like kind of sucked. Like I shot 3 over in some not so great conditions. 2 over ended up making the cut in the first one, and then I shot -3 in the second one, and -4 ended up getting in. So you normally have to shoot like, if you shoot 5 under par after 2 rounds, you're making a cut. So that's like a safe bet to make the cut.
And like typical winner, what are we looking at? Like 10 under for the weekend, or like 7 or 8?
Oh God, much lower. I think this past week, the last 3-day event that was played, I did not play. 18 under won it.
Oh wow.
So
pretty competitive stuff.
Oh yeah, and then I think 20 under won the one before. So I mean, these guys are good. There was a guy who I played with. He played on Corn Ferry Tour for I think like a full season, and he's been playing out here forever. But he actually had just qualified for the 3M Open that took place this past week. And I actually played with him in my second event. So it's pretty cool. Like the level of play is very high out here. Also, I want to turn the light up.
Go right ahead. Absolutely fascinating how you have to deal with the like. I totally understand like how the competition is probably better, or most certainly is. You played even back in Florida with some former PGA Tour pros who are now kind of teeing it up for shits and gigs. But it's kind of nice to see that there is a super competitive balance when you think of what you're dealing with right now in terms of how it'll get you into the next level. And obviously, we've gone over the idea of Q School was like 85,000 different levels and tiers before you even get like lick the KFT. Where do you think you fall under in terms of the hierarchy of guys right now in the Dakotas, and where you think you are right now in comparison to everyone else trying to get into high leverage golf situations?
I'd say I'm probably middle of the pack. I mean, the thing is, like, you can look at it and say, well, Ben, like, me personally, I'm this past week, those 2 1-dayers, it was so out of this world that I mentally wasn't ready to, like, handle how like the distractions and stuff during the round. I'm just gonna throw those out. The first 3 events, I made the cut in my third. I shot 7 under, and I finished like tied for 16. The other 2, I missed the cut by 1. But only the top third of the field makes the cut. So I'd out here, I'd say I'm probably like right around like a top third player. Yeah, top 40%. So a little bit better than that.
All right, so we'll certainly be seeing you tee it up in a big scale event at some point very soon. Shifting away from the Let's Drink Fireball at the Dakota store, I want to get your take. We haven't talked in a while. Last time we spoke, Live Golf wasn't even really a thing, and now obviously it's like the paramount topic in all of sports. If you've listened to the show in the last month, I said this probably around the U.S. Open. It's the first time in my life that outside of Tiger Woods winning a major, has golf taken center stage, opening credit of Sports Center kind of news.
Yeah.
And it's been all around Live Golf and this breakaway tour. And there have been reports now that the LPGA might try and partner up with Live. Might make a Live women's tour. We'll see how that goes. But I want to get your take first and foremost on what Live Golf in your eyes as a budding professional and what you see in the current golfers who are moving over. What do you see Live as a competitor, as a good move for golf, as a bad move for golf? What's your initial take on the sport itself?
Okay. So I think I know your stance on Live, and I'm probably going to get killed for this. I personally think it's a good move. And before I get murdered by everybody, figuratively, the way the PGA Tour operates, and I've played with a lot of ex-Korn Ferry Tour players and actually ex-PGA Tour players since I turned pro. A lot of them say the same thing, which is either, well, it's along the lines, or, quote, I've been screwed over many times by the tour. The tour is almost $1 billion business, yet they pay poorly at the lower levels. I heard on the Korn Ferry Tour, if you're not top 25 on the money list, you have to pay for your own rental car. You have to pay for your own hotel, which I understand. Like, people are like, well, you play in the Korn Ferry Tour. People don't understand that when you're not making cuts, you're not making money. Yeah. And so that's really hard. And you have a caddy to pay for too. You have flights, you have hotels, you have rental cars. Not only that, it's really hard to travel because there's no rhyme or reason to the Korn Ferry Tour schedule. You're not just going across the U.S. kind of like what the PGA Tour does. You're going from Louisiana to Georgia, like to Texas to Florida, and you're driving. You generally don't have the budget to fly, and so I think that this is going to serve as a wake-up call. And I'm not sure if you took a marketing class. Monopolies, when you're in college, you always want to avoid having a monopoly in a sector of business. Okay, the PGA Tour was a monopoly, and they had partnered with the DP World Tour, so you can't really say that the DP World Tour was competition for the PGA Tour. And so this allows PGA Tour players, high-level players, to make a base salary, which I think is fair, play less golf. I don't love the shotgun format. I don't, because that reminds me of college. That's very college-y to me, and I don't like that. They pay your caddy. You travel through Live, which I would assume for free, which I would assume is for free.
Yeah.
So you're eliminating all these expenses, and even if you finish the worst in the field, you're making $120,000, and they're paying your caddy. So, and I understand I understand where people are coming from with, well, it's Saudi money, it's blood money. I understand that. But I believe it was Colin Cowherd said this, and I know a lot of people don't like him. I actually respect him a lot. Our government deals with the Saudis.
Yeah.
The NBA deals with China. Well, China's very oppressive towards its people, actually. So we can debate the morals behind the situation, but if you have the ability to influence how much money you make, and as an athlete where you only get paid based on performance, when you don't play well, you get nothing. It's really hard to pass up. And to be quite honest, like, I think it's really good because now you see all of a sudden the tour is like going more towards like these special events where everybody makes money.
Yeah.
I don't like the format of it because you're only aiding like the top 60 players in the world. It's like the rich get richer. But what about the guys that have been struggling? What about the guy that's 35 years old with 2 kids and a wife and a mortgage that just got on the PGA Tour? He probably doesn't have that much money.
Yeah.
You know? And golf is a type of sport where you kind of need to have money to play. You know?
So what is it about LIV that obviously you mentioned the shotgun start you don't like, but you enjoy having the expenses paid? Obviously, it's very nice to have a pretty penny paid for you for some guys like Bryson and DJ and Phil and Cameron Smith who are going to make $125 million for putting pen to paper, which sounds pretty damn good, especially with the way they're able to protect you tax-wise and grant you in annuities and give you $2 million a year for the rest of your life. It's pretty nice, especially for when most of these guys live in Florida and you're technically paid through no income tax in Florida, which is actually very nice too. So you enjoy the money side, but in terms of the actual product on the golf course, do you think that the PGA Tour will adapt, or are they going to kind of stay very stagnant in their ways, root to tradition, and could LIV Golf possibly be the future of golf with now the way people are going? As of right now, Cameron Smith and Hideki Matsuyama, 2 guys top 15 in the world. Cameron Smith, of course, won the Open, are currently set to go following the Tour Championship after this week. At Bedminster, there isn't a LIV event until after the Tour Championship. So a lot of guys are going to jump ship following that final week of the PGA Tour calendar. Do you feel that LIV is going to overtake and that the PGA Tour will ever really recoup this or try and adapt?
It's hard to bet against a organization like the PGA Tour, but the LIV Tour is a huge threat to the PGA Tour because now initially you were seeing, and I said this to you over text, initially you were seeing guys who were on either, it was like one of like 3 or 4 things. They're on the back end of their career. They had prior issues with the PGA Tour, whether it was, say drug-related suspensions. Won't name any names, but I'm sure people could figure it out. People with questionable moral characters, maybe like a Patrick Reed who cheated in college, cheated on the PGA Tour, stole from his teammates in college, stuff like that. Those were kind of like the 3 types of people they were getting. Well, now you see players that are well respected like Cam Smith, Charles Howell III, Henrik Stenson, Hideki Matsuyama. Those 4 guys are very well respected by their peers on tour. They're not just a bunch of like jerks, And so if they recruit guys like that, I think you will see more guys jumping towards LIV because money does talk. And it's easy for someone like, say, Rory McIlroy to speak out against it. Well, Rory, you have won 2 FedEx Cups, and you do have that big, fat Nike contract. It's pretty easy for you to speak out against something like that. But do you hear, like, other guys who don't have the cash flow that you have speaking out against it? I don't hear it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I think it's staggering how – and, like, you even look at guys who are – they're getting better. I think Max Homa is a prime example, has been on fire this year. He has more than 10 top 15 finishes. Only now has he actually gotten to the point where he can say confidently that I've made enough money to not have to worry about Liv or get tempted by Liv, and also he's going to wind up being on the PIP. There's no doubt about it. The guy's he's the highest presented guy on social media, so he's already there. He's recently gotten in on it. Obviously, the guys that have talked about it, Justin Thomas, Tiger Woods offered $1 billion. Sure, you're not going. Sure, you'll turn it down, but Tiger Woods has got
he is a billionaire.
Tiger, yeah, like you could turn down $1 billion when you are a billionaire. It doesn't really matter for you.
Exactly.
Morikawa has 2 majors by 26. Justin Thomas has 1 major but has multiple Players Championships. Has a or came close to it. If it is a title, Xander Schauffele, if it is a title, like these guys have money. Obviously, you don't see a lot of the guys like we had discussed. Those guys on the back end of their careers. I get why Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood and Sergio Garcia wanted to go. I get it. Maybe Sergio a little differently because he has that like super uber European legacy where he is basically the second best Spanish golfer next to Seve Ballesteros ever. So like, why would you want to give that up? But like Phil Mickelson was always second fiddle to Tiger. Of course he wants to go somewhere where he can be top dog and he can compete week in and week out. Now it's actually kind of turning on Phil because he really can't keep up still with the guys like DJ and the bunch. But
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
But it's showing, and you're totally right. I am very anti-Liv in terms of the morality of things.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no denying that. Look, if some guy's going to offer me $200 million, I don't care who it's from. I'm taking it.
Nope. Yeah.
And the fact that people discredited Phil for that comment, I think is ridiculous. And yeah, look, the Saudi Arabians aren't the best people to deal with, but we have events, PGA sanctioned events that are linked to the DP World Tour that happen in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
They're like you had said, Chinese and American products are being sold back and forth. We were trying to get ties with Cuba during the Castro administration. I can go on and on forever being the history guy that I am, but you're absolutely right. The problem here is that people don't want to understand that money talks, and I hope the PGA can adjust. I hope they can find a way. And like you said, those tighter, small level events, you're going to turn the Genesis at Riviera into a 60-man field where everyone gets paid. No, why not help the guys at the back end? You should be helping the greater good of the PGA instead of getting all those like lower name guys off anyways.
Exactly. And you know what? I find it so interesting because, and I said this to Sophia the other night, I was looking at the leaderboard from the 3M Open, and I'm like, after 2 rounds, and I'm like, these guys, like some of the guys in the field, I haven't heard their names in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Why are they playing? It's like, and look, like, no disrespect to someone like Brian Davis, who has had an amazing PGA Tour career, someone who I've actually played with. Brian Davis cannot compete on the PGA Tour anymore. Why is he taking a spot from someone that's younger that has more upside? Yeah. No one wants to watch someone who's 48 years old, coming off back surgery, and only hits like 275 off the tee. They'd much rather watch like a 25-year-old that can just grip it and rip it, who has more upside. You know, I think it's very interesting. And look, like, you know, maybe Brian Davis one day qualified into the event. I don't know. But I see guys that are now filling out these fields at these like not as glamorous PGA Tour events, and I'm like, I haven't heard this name in forever. Why is he in this field?
Yeah,
can't we get some younger guys to play? And I understand your point about, like, say, I don't know if that's true, if it's true that they're turning Riviera into like a 60-man field. I certainly hope it's not.
That's one of the expected events to be that like super tour exclusive events. That's the plan.
See, and I don't see, and here's the thing. I think, and I heard this, I think it was actually from Colin Cowherd. The best companies, they don't react. They're proactive. The PGA Tour is completely reacting because right now they see this, and this has been a threat since the 90s, okay? This was a threat back in the early 90s when Tim Fincham was the commissioner of the PGA Tour. You have known about this potentially happening for years. And the only thing that like that top 60 in the world thing is doing is keeping your star players happy. Well, eventually your star players are going to fade. And you better hope that the Live Tour does not get world ranking points at some point. Because right now they don't.
Yeah.
But if they do, and someone like Dustin Johnson and Sergio Garcia and whoever else is on there can get world ranking points, they would technically be eligible if they're in the top 60. But you're still helping the guys that don't have the endorsement deals, that don't have the same cash flow, that are lesser knowns, that are more grinders, that have been at it for a long time. Those are the guys who need to help.
Yeah. So with that being said, though, so obviously the reactive nature of the PGA Tour has brought on these, again, very rash decisions, and we don't know what's going to happen quite yet in terms of what this top 60, top 80 super tour event six rotation will be. And do I think it'll take away from Riviera if it is that way, or the Waste Management or Bay Hill? Absolutely. But there have been some positives that have come out of this reactive nature, and one of them specifically relates to you, as they obviously have PGA University, where they have players that are able to get pipelined into the tour faster through college, but they're also starting up new Q School initiatives, catered towards getting more of those stars to kind of stay within the PGA Tour realm and not branch out. Because obviously there have been guys, James Pio is one of them, Andy Ogletree, guys who won the U.S. Amateur have now gone on to Live to make $40 million off the bat, which is probably more than they would ever make on the PGA Tour, assuming they don't have the blow up like a Will Zalatoris or a Scotty Scheffler does. So with the positives that have come, where do you see players now with the possibility of kind of pipelining the best talent to stay stateside on the PGA Tour through these new events and new styles of how to get them in?
Wait, so are you asking if that's going to be a benefit? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So what's your opinion on them? Do you think it's going to actually be able to streamline players into the PGA, and will it make it easier for them to get their tour card? Because obviously there's so many hoops to jump through on your end and for so many others.
So you're talking about Q School, though?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, Q School. So I think, first of all, I will not be completely happy with the system until they bring PGA Tour Q School back. And I think doing that, obviously it made getting a PGA Tour card much more difficult, but when you had it, it was much more valuable as well. Once they did away with PGA Tour Q School, because you had to go strictly through Korn Ferry. I do like that they did top 5 and ties from final stage would go straight to the PGA Tour. That's only 5 guys.
Yeah.
I think the Q School system is still very flawed. I know a friend of mine who's in his 30s, he's been playing golf forever. He recently this year got his PGA Tour Canada card for the first time. He's played one event and he missed the cut. He probably won't get another start this year. And he already shelled out over $4,000 just to go through Q School for PGA Tour Canada. I know another kid who I played with in a mini tour event. Played at Duke, great player. Always seems to be in contention whenever I play the same events as him. He was on Korn Ferry Tour for the wraparound season. Barely got any starts, and he went to Canadian Tour Q School. Finished top 10. He's played 3 events. Hasn't played poorly, but he's missed all 3 cuts. He might not get very many other starts. And you have to finish top 5 up in Canada or Latin America or China just to get to Korn Ferry. It's so backwards to me. I fully believe that they should bring back PGA Tour Q School. And if you want to make it more expensive, fine. I understand it. I mean, Korn Ferry Q School, it's $3,000 alone just to do pre-qualifying. That's $1,000 a round because it's only 3 rounds. And then after that, you have to pay another. Actually, it's $3,500, and after that, you have to pay another $3,000 for your last 3 stages. And hopefully, you keep making it through. So, I understand what they're doing. but I think it's not enough. It's really not enough. I think they need to bring back the actual PGA Tour Q School. If they want to keep Korn Ferry Tour Q School, fine. But I mean, only 5 players get their card for the PGA Tour. Like, what's that going to do? That's not going to keep someone from going to live, is it? I don't think so.
I mean, if I'm going to get offered a ton of money to go, after all, the number one player in Thailand is a 14-year-old who beat half the field in the Dubai Desert Open, and he's on live. He's a 15-year-old kid. He's already made $5 million.
Yeah.
Like who's better than him? I'm currently sitting in my mom's basement doing a podcast with you, and you're in Sioux Falls, North Dakota, trying to bust your ass off. And this kid's this kid's balling on a budget. He's doing his thing. Like, do you think the PGA Tour has the money to make it so that Q School could be cheaper, or just really any level here that you're paying enormous sums to at least be able to offer you some sort of an aid if you need it, or make events incredibly cheap? Because at the end of the day, look, this is a non-profit organization that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. The PGA Tour's been doing this forever.
Yes, they have. It's not quite $1 billion. I believe it's like $990 million. That was
fine. Cry me a river.
But that's from a former Korn Ferry Tour player's mouth. Okay, so.
Yeah.
So what I think they should do, number one, they need to bring back PGA Tour Q School. That's the first thing. And if you want to make that more expensive, fine. But I think that's a better option than spending $6,500 to go to Korn Ferry Tour Q School. Next, you need to increase the payout at Korn Ferry Tour events. Okay? Because if you're not playing well, you're not making any money. Okay? And the payouts aren't that great unless you're playing great. Third, guys that miss the cut, you need, and I think they do this, I'm not 100% sure. They need to say, we will give you a certain amount of thousands of dollars for the week to cover your expenses. Because if you're not going to cover my hotel, and I don't know if the PGA Tour does that, but based on what I've heard about the Korn Ferry Tour, if you're not top 25, it's like tough luck. They should give you some type of sum of money to cover those expenses. I think those are the changes that they need to make, because PGA Tour will never compete with Saudi money. That's never going to happen. But you need to implement other benefits, like the player impact program. I understand it. Tiger Woods didn't hit a golf shot. Why is he qualified to win? Why?
It's Tiger Woods.
Exactly.
It's almost a back-ass. It's an ass-backward system, because again, the rich get rich and the poor stay poor. It's going to be a rolling wheel.
That is 100% my gripe with it. Absolutely, that's 100% my gripe with it.
Now, do you think that it's feasible for the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour and all these different organizations collectively to be able to offer the myriad and tons of golfers even slight compensation for saying, hey, you're trying out for our tour to become a better player and work your way up to the grandest stage of the top 150 players in the world and play consistently at the best courses on the planet? Do you think it's feasible for the PGA Tour to try and create this network across the country and make it possible to be able to afford some of these expenses? I feel like a lot of these players, there are so many of them that it's next to impossible.
Well, I don't think it's next to impossible. And I'm not saying you have to pay someone $20,000 if they miss the cut. That's not what I'm saying. Just enough to cover their expenses for the week so that they can get by on a reasonable budget. That's all I'm saying. I do think it's reasonable, but what Jay Monahan needs to do, he needs to, who knows, maybe he's doing this. I don't know. He needs to get on the phone with other corporate sponsors, like an Amazon maybe, a Netflix, IBM, Apple, companies like that, because it looks like we're heading for another recession. And when your business model is in limbo, like the PGA Tour is, corporate sponsors are not going to want to give you money when they're going into a recession. So he needs to act fast. But I think if he takes that approach, I think that would be that would help aid that sort of movement.
Final point here before we hit break. There's a report out that with Live Golf going with the team style on top of the individual, the goal is to have every team sponsored by a major corporate group. And as of right now, AT&T and Motorola are two of the leads to represent, I believe, Dustin Johnson's group and Bryson DeChambeau's team. Do you think if this happens and this can generate steam and Greg Norman can lead up to have the AT&T Aces, and it's Dustin Johnson every single week with the AT&T patch and the Live patch and doing his thing with Pat Reed, could they like wipe out the PGA Tour, getting all these big time sponsors, even the ones per se? Let's say, look at a future event, maybe not like the ones like 3M or the Barbasol, but maybe you get the Waste Management teams in the world, and you get car brands like Genesis or Lexus that used to be a PGA sponsor to represent these groups. Do you think that the PGA Tour might very well get squashed if all these corporate groups start to rally on Live?
The PGA Tour will never get squashed. I could see it being used as more of like a minor league system, though, for golfers to get to Live. That's what I could see, because the thing that the PGA Tour has going for them is that they have television deals, okay, which that grants the players exposure. Which I'm just throwing this out there. I don't think, and I heard this from Colin Cowherd. As you can tell, I'm a big fan. Whatever. The Fox doesn't cover golf at this point in time. They covered the U.S. Open for a couple of years, but I don't think they cover any golf tournaments. What if they went to Fox? What if Liv went to Fox? Fox Sports, FS1. Could you imagine? Like as of right now, I believe Peacock, and this is the one gripe that I have more than anything else. I'm watching the Open, and I'm watching it at work on a Thursday, right? And it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and it's like 3 o'clock there. I had to go from USA to Peacock to NBC Sports, which I didn't even have because it was a paid thing through NBC, and then back to USA for the late round coverage. Like, you're right. If Liv goes to Fox and is the sole provider of FS1 and Fox, and it's offered free, oh my God. Exactly.
And the PGA model of paying $80 just for NBC Golf is ridiculous. Sorry, you're saying.
No, it is. And like, that's kind of what I go back to, like, because when you talked about how like AT&T and Motorola, like, they're interested in sponsoring those two teams on Live. Well, Live, they have a stable product, an economically and financially stable product. The PGA Tour right now is actually, some would say, unstable right now. And that's a point from an employee. I don't remember his name. He's on Colin Cowherd's podcast. It was a very good point that he made. With the economic situation that we're currently in as a country, if you don't have a stable business model, you will not receive funding or sponsorships from larger corporate companies. But Liv is very stable financially. That's why these other companies are looking into sponsoring their teams.
Yeah, and honestly, if this happens again, like you said, I don't think it'll get squashed. But the PGA Tour is in some pretty hot water. We'll have to see what happens going on further. Once again, folks, Ben Pirro joining us here from the Underground. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back, discuss the 3M. Had some fun with Tony Finau earlier this week. We'll see what he did to secure his win, and of course, break down what's going on this week at the Detroit Golf Club in the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Don't go anywhere. You are watching and listening. Get in the hole from the Underground. Welcome back, folks. Get in the hole from the Underground. Steve McAvoy, Ben Pirro joining me in the seat this week. Ben, it was a great conversation about the golf situation that you've been in, but it's time to kind of turn heads a little bit to what's happening over on the PGA Tour. And don't worry, we're going to talk a little Live as well. We of course have the Live golf event in Bedminster. I'll probably be at that one down at Trump Bedminster. I believe on probably Saturday I'll be there for the final round, so we'll see how that one goes. But Ben, let's get right into some some talks on the 3M Open. We have a little segment here to kind of recap and a little insight onto what's to come here at the Detroit Rocket Mortgage Classic. We're going to do a little bit of in and out. I'll ask some questions. You'll tell me if you're in on it, if you're out on it, if you're interested, if you're not interested. And we'll start off with what happened at the 3M in Twin Cities this past weekend with Tony Finau. A huge win for Tony. Turned around on the back nine, a 5-stroke deficit to a 3-stroke win. Of course, Scott Piercy had a bit of a breakdown, a little mental issue. And, of course, Tony managed to whack his way to a win. One of the highlights, though, from the week was actually a wedge shot. And I'm not sure if you ever tried this before, but it happened last year with Kevin Na. I believe it was at the John Deere Classic. And he was like right towards the edge of the rough, wasn't able to putt through the thick rough, used the toe of his wedge to find his way onto the green. Like literally, as I pull the putter out here, he used this side to hit the ball instead of using the face. Are you in or out? Are you in or out on the move? Do you like the idea? Is it a little too risky for you as a pro? What do you think about it?
I think it's a great move. And you said Tony Finau did it, right?
Of course.
Yes.
The man.
So Tony Finau is someone – I thought about this for a while. Tony Finau is someone that has really struggled with his putting this year. I looked at his stats. Strokes gained in putting, and he's 142nd in strokes gained putting. So it's clearly been a weakness of his. When you do something like that, you incorporate more imagination, creativity into it, and it takes less of the thinking out of it. So I'm in on it, actually. Anytime you can stimulate your mind in golf for more creativity rather than getting bogged down in thoughts or mechanics, I'm always in on that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on it. I think it's a cool move. You don't usually see a lot of different like fun, crazy things. I think probably the wackiest thing I've ever seen from a player was Matt Kuchar years ago at the Players Championship on 17 at Sawgrass. Had to go because he's a righty. The ball was right up against the left side of the woodwork and went backwards. I actually tried that once. I was at I'm not sure if you ever played at Timber Point, but
oh yeah, 100%.
Of course, classic. On the 18th green, there's a big bunker on the backside, and I basically had no shot. So I go up to the side of it and I whack it backwards, and I literally landed at like 10 feet to the green. I felt like an absolute stud doing it because I would have literally had to go in the bunker and swing this way, like I'm like whacking weeds. So I tried it. I was also like down and out. I'd already had a penalty shot for going far left into the fescue. Couldn't find it. Took a drop shot. So I'm like, you know what? I'm out of this one. I could save this to break 90. I wound up literally hitting 90 thanks to that shot. So I love the creativity. I think one of the things that golf lacks, if it isn't going to bring on new like styles to win, aside from like stroke play, I've been a big fan of like the Stableford system that you saw at the Barracuda a couple weeks ago. If you can't do that, you might as well have fun on the golf course and be creative in that way. So I'm totally in on it. In or out, the USGA made an announcement they're going to move the World Golf Hall of Fame out of St. Augustine, Florida, and to Pinehurst. Of course, Pinehurst being one of the nicest golf courses and complexes in the country. What do you make of the move, in or out on that one?
I'm in on it. If I said I was out on it, I'd be a hypocrite. So remember when I said money talks? Well, one of the reasons, according to firstcoastnews.com, one of the reasons they decided to move was poor attendance at the World Golf Hall of Fame. I'm assuming you'd have to obviously pay to walk around the museum. Well, I've been to Pinehurst. I've been to Pinehurst during the summer. I've been there during the winter, spring. It's always popping. So that just creates more of a cash flow for the USGA. So I'm in on it.
You know, I love the move largely because the PGA Tour has had, or just golf in general, the USGA, they have like so many different places to go. Like I know the PGA Tour has PGA National. It's St. Lucie. They have a Hall of Fame thing there, or like a Walk of Fame. You can go to Pinehurst. You can go to all these different places. But there's something about Pinehurst that really just kind of stands out. I drove by there. I went to go visit a friend at Chapel Hill, and I drove down Tobacco Road, and I was in the area. And it's beautiful. It's a remarkable place. It's somewhere where I hope they bring more major events to in the future. Even a PGA Tour event, you could play Pinehurst #2, and it's as challenging as any other event you could possibly play. Or to have a major there would be impeccable. Also, the value to go play at Pinehurst, it's like $1,000. You could play 3 rounds, 4 rounds, and get lodging and everything. It's an incredible value. I'm all in on it. Next thing here, in or out on this one. At the LPGA event this past week, Nelly Korda shot on the 4th hole, went wide right into the trees. A woman was walking by the area, saw the golf ball, picked it up. Unbeknownst to her, just picks up the golf ball. Do I have a delivery? I have a delivery for my soda. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
The brother coming in clutch this week. How's the cheddar?
Oh, cheddar's great.
Dylan had a bomb pump today at the gym, so he got me a soda to thank me for buying him some goodies. You can close the door.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chief. So she picks the ball up, unbeknownst to her, and this guy goes like, "What are you doing? Put the ball back!" Oh my God! Probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. In or out, people picking up golf balls when they shouldn't.
I'm out. I'm a player. It would piss me off. Like, are you kidding me? I've seen that happen one other time. I think it happened to Luke Donald actually at Doral. This person just like sees this ball just like rolling along the cart path, and she's like picks it up and just like starts walking with it.
Like, what are you doing?
I don't know. I'm so out on it. It's ridiculous. Like, don't do that. Really?
Like, hey, babe, look what I found, a Pro V1. Like, no, it's her ball.
Exactly.
Like, not for nothing. It's the top 5 player in the world. Thankfully, like, according to the rules, because I was reading into it, that if you place the ball back within a certain period, it's like fine. So like one guy literally knew where it fell and like saw it like happening, so he was like, "Oh, like drop it here." And the rules official was shortly there, but like, come on, man, what are you doing?
It's ridiculous.
It's a bad move. It's just that probably if there was a list of top 10 dumbest things I've seen this week, that would most certainly be on it. All right, Ben. We talked a little bit about 3M, what happened in the LPGA world. Of course, also Brooke Henderson winning this week. I love Brooke Henderson. She's beautiful. I love her so much. Anyways, the Rocket Mortgage Classic this week at Detroit Golf Club. It's amazing having a golfer here who did his research and knows what's going on at this golf course, because I'm just going to basically hand it off to you. It's course confidential. We're talking Detroit Golf Club, the Donald Ross design. Mm-hmm. You already know the numbers and what there is about this course to win. Break it down from the golfer's perspective.
Okay, so basically, according to...
We got sources. Cite them, baby. AP style. Let's hear it.
Yep. This was published on PGAtour.com by Jeff Eisenband. So, several things we want to understand. This is actually the flattest course that they play on tour, which is kind of par for the course when you play kind of like Midwest-style courses. The courses are generally flat. Tree-lined, and based on it being a northern Midwest course, the rough is going to be thicker. That being said, though, summer in Detroit, pretty perfect conditions. One thing you will notice, and this was according to the article I just referenced, back in 2019, the winner was 25 under par and the cut was -5. And the superintendent basically said one of the reasons for the low scoring was the greens were a little bit more benign. They weren't quite as fast. And if you know anything about putting on fast greens, that slower greens aid worse putters. The faster the green, the more solid you have to hit the ball for it to stay on line, thus aiding a better putter. So, but that being said, that also makes it harder to putt. So as we've seen the last 3 years, we've gone from -25 to -23 to -18 as the winning scores over the last 3 years. So I would definitely look to see very fast greens, firm as well. It's still tree line golf course and thick rough, so that the winning score isn't 20 under par.
We've seen some winners here in the past, including Bryson DeChambeau, who won in pretty strong fashion, but also have seen some shorter hitters like Nate Lashley, Cam Davis. Doc Redman was in the running, but it appears to me from what it's been the last 3 years that we've played this course since 2019, that it hasn't really been one defined set of player that manages to win here. Give us some keys to victory. What do guys have to do in order to perform at their peak? Again, I'm gonna read your names here, and it's a very expansive list between Nate Lashley beating Doc Revin in 19, DeChambeau over Wolf in 2020, which was basically at that point a drive fest because Cam Champ was fifth that week, and then Cam Davis over Troy Merritt and Joaquin Neiman. Three guys who are relatively similar, but also have very vastly different play styles. What do you make of what are some keys to victory here this week at the Detroit Golf Club with what you have just mentioned? What are guys going to be dealing with in order to get to that top rank?
Okay, so courses like this, where you have to shoot really low, you pretty much have to have all facets of your game going. Because really, you look at how you make. So look at basically the concept of how to make birdies. You have to putt well. Your wedges have to be really good. And you have to drive the ball well. Okay. Oh, that was Sophia.
That was loud.
Yeah, I know. Well, I texted you by accident.
Oh, I know. I saw it. And I'm like, Steven's running later than usual. Oh, sorry, Sophia. I apologize.
Well, I'm not. No, I didn't mean it to be rude. It's just taking a little longer. So whatever.
It's all right, Ben. We're having fun. That's what matters the most.
We're having fun. Shut up. All right, whatever. So basically, what you have to understand is putting is going to be very important. Well, how do you make putts? Well, the closer you are to the hole, the better chance. What's that?
You put it in the hole.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to be closer to the hole. The closer you are to the hole, the better chance you have of making it. Well, how do you hit it closer to the hole? Well, you have to be hitting wedges or from the fairway. So putting the ball in the guys that put the ball in the fairway will have, like most events, the best chance at winning. So there's a statistic that I believe Mike Bender told me. I was not a long hitter in high school. I was actually very short. I hit 275 my senior year of high school. Okay, for reference. Now I hit it 300 yards. So, but he would always tell me a guy that say has 200 yards to the green from the fairway statistically has a better chance of someone who is 125 yards away but in the rough of hitting it close. That stat reigns supreme. The only way for someone to hit it in the rough and still have a statistically a better chance of hitting it close is if they hit it more than 75 yards past that player, past everybody else. Well, we don't see that huge difference in driving distance. So it's the guys that put the ball in the fairway. Those are the guys who have the best chance of winning. The guys that drive the ball the straightest and putt the best.
So fairways gain is going to be really important. Accuracy over distance, which clearly wasn't the case in 2020, but probably will come into effect this year with the thicker rough. Yep. We have short gain approach, certainly going to be. Me and John to joke about it. It's basically the number one stat on any event, any given week. It's short gain approach, and it's kind of like the running joke that I've always had of if you aren't good on approach and you can't keep it proximity wise to the hole, and you're screwed. I believe the average distance for a par 4 here is between 420 to 480 yards. So a lot of guys are going to be hitting probably a low iron into the green, a 9 iron, maybe a pitching wedge in. Yep. So it shouldn't be incredibly difficult. And of course, like you said, it's not very undulated. So the putting surface should be pretty clean, but also very, very fast, which I believe you might have better numbers than me on that. Is it bent grass this week? I believe it might be. It should be.
It should be bent grass. It should be. Yes,
I would assume.
I would assume it's bent grass. When I went to school in Cincinnati, it was bent grass. So I don't see why it would be.
Bent grass is a pretty popular grass in the Northeast and in colder weather climates in the North. So that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'll probably wind up looking that up for afterwards. But to give an idea, the guys who putt really well on bent grass, and again, this is going to feed into who we're betting on later on this week. By the way, not to toot my own horn, said it on the episode last week. I said Tony Finau was going to win the 3M. He won the 3M. So just want to push that out there. Give me some names that you're looking at this week that you think will thrive well, who have those keys, that are playing hot right now, to come into Detroit and get that win. Who are some guys that you're thinking of? We'll get into the bets in a bit. don't give away any spoilers, but who are some guys that are on your radar?
Guys that are on my radar, it's a little bit of a different mix of guys. So Max Homa and Kevin Kisner, those guys have been a model of consistency for a while. Kevin Kisner never seems to have a bad tournament, and I feel like he's more of like a top 25 machine just to play well.
Oh,
It always feels like every Thursday, when Thursday rolls around, it's like, you could see him winning. Obviously, Tony Finau, he's coming in hot. Maybe he figured out the putter. He did finish. What was it? He did actually finish in the positive in strokes gained putting. That's actually very good considering where he was at earlier in the year. So his putting's improving. And also guys like Cameron Champion, Patrick Cantlay, guys who are just consistently very strong players.
I have 3 guys this week I'm thinking of, debating on whether or not to bet on them. There's one guy in the field who he does only one thing right, and it's putting, specifically on bent grass greens. Could you guess who it is? He's averaging 0.818 strokes gained putting this season, which is 3rd best on tour. The average is, I believe, like a 0.4 is the average on tour.
Great putter, Luke Donald.
It's Denny McCarthy. He does only one thing right, and it's putt. He's one of the last rated players in the field this week in driving distance, accuracy, strokes gained approach, and everything else. But for some reason, I don't like the hot putter, man. It happens to work. I really like him. I love your Kevin Kisner pick. He said it the best, and I always reference it. You make a lot of money for coming in 20th on the PGA Tour. There's a reason why he ain't going to live golf. It's because he just keeps on hitting top 20 every single week, and it's consistent. And also, this is the first week back that we're going to see Will Zalatoris and Cameron Young, 2 guys who have been playing off their rocker, particularly in the major season. Both of them have a top 5 finishes in 2 of the 4 majors this year. So those are guys I'm looking at. Also, Kevin Kisner's strokes gained approach is like 0.57, which is incredible. It's actually better than Cameron Smith's, which is like kind of hard to believe, considering how he had literally 280 feet worth of putts on Friday at the Open. So those are some guys we're looking at. Once again, a little short break. When we come back, it's beer money time. We'll give you all of our picks for the Rocket Mortgage. Welcome back in, part 3 of 3. Ben, you're stretching out. You seem pretty ready to get going for some beer money time. Brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer, Philadelphia's #1 favorite light beer. Get it, Kenny. Let's drop in. Let's get going. Top 20, Ben. Give us your pick at the Rocket Mortgage. Who's bringing home a top 20 and a nice little paycheck?
All right. You said no spoilers, but I kind of did give you a spoiler. It's Kevin Kisner. He's a top 20 machine, as he said. They pay a lot of money for finish 20th. Y'all around just has a very strong game. I think this is a course that suits him well. He's a good driver of the golf ball, good iron player, good putter. I think it's a shoe-in top 20 finish for him.
There's a guy who he reminds me a lot of you, and it's not particularly like play style, but it's the fact that it took him a while to kind of find himself up the ranks. He made the PGA Tour. He fell off the PGA Tour. He was out of commission for about a year, 2 years. Now he's back. He played. He didn't Monday qualify. He Sunday qualified technically for the Open after winning the Barbasol, and then he went off with literally no experience on links golf. I'm going to take Trey Mullinax this week. He's like plus 200, pretty good value. He's not the greatest driver of the golf ball. He's accurate enough to get it there. The putter worked at the old course, and it's a little bit like strange because that course was putridly slow in terms of the greens for the week. But he's actually well known for putting on those fast greens. He comes from the Midwest, comes from an area around here. I believe he's from Illinois. So I think this kind of fits for Trey Mullinax. I'm going to go with him for top 20. Give me your top 10 this week.
All right, my top 10 is going to be Patrick Cantlay, the FedEx Cup, reigning FedEx Cup champion. I personally believe that he's going to put it together this week. He's had a very solid year, but I think he's about to break out and get another win. I'm not even sure if he's won this year, but that's my top 10 pick this week. He's just an all-around solid player on an all-around solid golf course, and I think that feeds into his game well.
This was the time of the year that Cantley turned around his entire season following the win at the Memorial, and then started this downward swing to just dominate the entire FedEx Cup playoffs. I'm going to go with the reigning champion, Cameron Davis. It makes sense why he won his first event here. He's incredibly long off the tee. He's accurate as well. He's basically the Australian version of Corey Connors. He hits it far, hits it straight. The approach game's pretty solid, and the putter worked. And not to mention, the greens last year at the Detroit Golf Club were the third fastest among every non-major event on the PGA Tour calendar, which is crazy to think about considering the places they played. The only faster greens were at Riviera and Bay Hill. So you're already looking at a really challenging golf course for, at the very least, what has been for years a very easy course all the way up to the green. Because a lot of guys struggle on lightning fast greens. It's just how it is. And you kind of see the mold of like 3 or 4 guys every single week who just play really well in those conditions. Cameron Davis is one of them. I love him this week. He's about plus 400 for top 10. So I'll take him to the bank. Your top 5, what do you got?
Cameron Champ. I think Cameron Champ, it's not the longest course in the world, but given how firm and fast the conditions should be, being that it's a northern course in the middle of the summer, I feel like that's going to play into his length off the tee. And if he can just get the putter rolling, which I think he will, he's going to have much shorter approach shots to the green because he's one of the longer players in the field. I'm not saying he's going to win because longer guys tend to hit a little bit more offline than shorter guys. But for how long he is, he's actually a very straight driver of the golf ball. He's a good putter, and he's going to have shorter wedges, shorter approach shots in. He's my top 5 pick.
I'm kind of nervous in my top 5 because he doesn't really fit this golf course in any way, shape, or form, but he's been so, elusively good this year. He's like the 130th ranked putter on the planet, and yet for some reason he gains the most strokes in majors. I'm going to take Will Zalatoris this week. It sounds kind of crazy because, look, he hits the ball a country mile, but he can't putt for nothing. He isn't good on really fast greens, yet Southern Hills is really fast, putted really well.
Yep.
The Country Club was very fast, putted very well. He had his best strokes gained the last 3 years, last 2 years at back-to-back Masters tournaments. I don't know if it's a difference between he's like the new wave Brooks Koepka where he only plays good in majors and he just doesn't do anything in the regular season. But I think this very well might be the event that he might get that first win that he's been looking for. And it's against a field that, while there are 4 of the top 21 top players in the world according to the OWGR, I still think that there's going to be a challenge. But if he can overcome it and figure out the putter, he'll be totally fine. I'll take Willie Z for a top 5. Before we get to that elusive winning pick that's been so hard to come by, I think we have 4 wins on the year through 40 weeks on the calendar. Give me your gimme bet. Who's the best bet of the week? The guy who's going to easily bring home some money and put some in your pocket before your next mini tour event.
Zach Johnson for sure. He's playing this week. He's obviously in the back end of his career, and we have the same coach, so I have
a little bias,
a little bit of bias. But you know what? Hey, great driver of the golf ball, great wedge player, and when he's on, he's a very good putter. That feeds into his game this week. He will make the cut for sure. It's a gimme pick.
Making the cut for Zach Johnson. I'm going to pull your top 20 pick and make it my gimme. I love Kevin Kisner. I love him so much this week. I think he could win this week. It doesn't take the longest driver of the ball to win, and for the most part, the guys like Champ and Davis and Joaquin Niemann who are going to be in the event, they can hit it 80,000 yards, but for the most part, does distance really matter that much? I think it's going to be an accuracy thing, and Kevin Kisner is the notable guy here. When he won the Wyndham last year, he won in a 6-man playoff against guys who severely outdrove him, but didn't hit it nearly as straight. So I love Kisner for top 20. Give me that winner. Who's the big guy taking home the big check?
Max Homa. He's been a model of consistency, as you said earlier this year. I think he has 10 earlier today. I think you said he has 10 top 50s.
10 top 15s.
15s, yes.
Which is crazy.
That's insane. When you're that consistent, you always have a chance to win, and eventually you're going to win again. He's going to win again. It's going to be this week.
There's one guy who I have been on him and riding his coattails for years. Well, actually months, really, but for the last year. His friend, his former caddy, was a high school friend of one of my friends, and so I've known about him for a while. He played golf at Fordham Prep. It's Cameron Young. Cameron Young's going to win at some point, and to be honest with you, he got shafted by the best putting performance on a Sunday I've ever seen. So you know what? It's totally fine. Give Cameron Smith the claret jug. I will give Cameron Young his first win and give him the big O at the Detroit Rocket Mortgage Classic. He's one of the top 5 players in the field right now this week. I think it's a shoe-in. He's been on fire all year. He's like 5 top 5s. Like you can't get much better than what this in his rookie year. And a win is just going to even more solidify the fact that he will probably win the Rookie of the Year this season. It's almost a gimme at that point. So there you go.
Yeah.
Big picks for the Detroit Rocket Mortgage Classic. Ben, it's been incredible. Thank you for hopping on. And hopefully we'll be able to see you again in the near future. We'll talk about that later on in a little private session. But with that being said, that is all for the Get in the Hole podcast here from the Underground. Ben Pirro, be sure to follow him on Twitter at Pirro_Ben. Follow me at Twitter and Instagram at Stephen McAvoy_. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And don't forget, Trump Bedminster this week. Here, one. Give me a live pick. Someone who's going to win this week on the live tour. Who do you think at Trump Bedminster?
Oh, man.
I have my guy, and no one likes him, which is why I'm going to love this pick so much.
I never like any of your picks. So.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Just some name, something random.
Dustin Johnson. He's the best one out there.
Patrick Reed's going to win. I can guarantee you that right now, and he will give a big FU to everybody because it's going to be him and Trump taking photos on the 18th green. That'll do it all for us, folks.
Like everybody else do not like Patrick Reed, so and it would never.
No one likes Patrick Reed. We don't like Patrick Reed. You don't like Patrick Reed. But